Hi, I'm Cathy Wurzer with NPR News and Twin Cities Public Television. I'm also the founder of the End in Mind Project. When I'm not working, I also create mosaics. Now, I'm not a very good artist at all, but I understand that art, all art, can be healing. Creating your art or viewing the art of someone else can also help you cope with stress and help you explore your inner world. So at End in Mind, we've been experimenting during our live events with using art as a lens to get you focused on how to have tough conversations around living and dying well. Well, we've been thinking in this time of the COVID crisis, how can art be used as a balm to help us work through all these feelings of uncertainty and all the fear that we have? So I thought the perfect person to talk about this is my friend Ali DeCamillis. She is with Gildas Club in the Twin Cities. Good to see you. You look great. How you doing?
Thanks. It's good to see you too, Kathy. I'm doing well, probably as well as any of us right now. I have a lot to be grateful for.
I do too. I do too, my friend. But I'm wondering about your clients. How are they doing? Because I would guess that this whole uncertain mess probably is another layer on top of what they already have going on with cancer.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Gilda's Club Twin Cities is a place where people can gather, connect, and learn from each other as they are learning to live with cancer. And Yeah, what is interesting is we actually typically have a clubhouse environment where people can come to gather, connect, and learn. But right now, as most of the world is doing, we've kind of done a real quick pivot to being virtual and remote in our support offerings. And what's interesting, we have about 17 weekly support groups, as well as some healthy lifestyle classes and educational offerings. And what we've heard from our members, and these are people who are living with cancer, but they can also be caregivers or people who are grieving the loss of somebody due to cancer, is that this does put an additional layer on the sense of isolation that they were already experiencing as somebody impacted by cancer. So it also brings up a lot of fear about, you know, loving somebody or being somebody who is immunocompromised, and being at greater risk right now. So definitely the uncertainty has been bumped up, the fear factor has been bumped up, but in some ways too, we've also been hearing just a lot about gratitude and how grateful they are for creative ways that they are being allowed to connect with each other during this time. They're also expressing a lot of you know, kind of introspective ideas of we have felt isolated and we always feel this level of uncertainty, and kind of existential concern. And so in some ways, they are used to this, and but it is an additional layer that they're having to really work through. Now they just feel like the rest of the world kind of has a wake up to what they've been experiencing on a day-to-day basis.
Well, yeah, actually, it is a good wake up call. I mean, the fact that we can experience some of what they're going through, I think is good actually for everybody in terms of empathy.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious. Well, then, how are you helping your friends at Gilda's Club kind of start to maneuver through some of this? I mean, they're already dealing with an awful lot of fear and anxiety, as you mentioned. So, what's the first step?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the first things that we've tried to do, and we tried to do really quickly, was to create a sense of continuity and safety, and being able to provide the services that they have grown accustomed to relying upon, for a sense of community and connection. So, it was really important. We actually didn't miss a day of providing support groups. And I think it was really important for them to be able to connect with the people that are still valuable sources of support, even though it's digital and remote. So people have really been leaning into being vulnerable during this time and connecting with each other in different ways than they're accustomed to. But again, it's really brought a lot of sense of gratitude that we are living in a time where we have this technology available to us, and it is providing us opportunities to think outside the box and still stay connected in really meaningful ways.
It is just, doing my full-time job and then doing my end in mind work. virtually is just, it's just, I can't even get my head wrapped around it sometimes. It really is crazy.
Yeah, our world has done a 180 really quick.
How do you work? How can you use some of this time of uncertainty to create art? I mean, are you personally doing that too to kind of help you navigate?
Yeah, so, personally, my background, I'm an art therapist. I'm also a licensed professional clinical counselor. And so, being creative, I think, is one of the ways that we can kind of tap into some of those things that feel a little bit more life enriching during a time that feels kind of life draining. And so, one of the things, as you and I were talking about this idea of connecting, that I suggested was about art journaling, and how can we, you know, connect with ourselves in really simple practices that allow us to reflect on what we have gratitude for. And so I actually have been doing a little bit of a mindfulness gratitude journal, that's both a combination of word and art.
Oh, I've got to
Yeah.
see this. I mean, can you walk us through this? Because I think some people think, and I'm sure you deal with this a lot too at Gildas Club. I'm not creative.
Oh, yeah.
I can't draw. I'm just that I don't have that bone in my body. How do you leap that hurdle?
Yeah, it's a huge hurdle. You know, One of the things as an art therapist that I always say is, when people say, well, I can't draw a straight line, I say, well, that's perfect. We don't want straight lines anyway. They're really boring, right? And so I think, you know, leaning into our creativity, humans were innately creative, and creativity comes around for each of us in unique ways. You mentioned being interested in mosaics and clay. Other people might be, builders, or they might be business leaders who are creators and, in management, and they use their creative skills that way. So I think, one, just understanding that there's really a continuum of creativity, and being creative doesn't mean that you have to own oil paints and paint brushes, that you really can. We all have innate creativity in us. So I think that's one thing that, if we can just kind of let that sink in, that we are all creative, that could take away some of the concern that we have to be an artist to be creative.
The art journals sound fantastic. Do
Yeah.
you have? I see you have some great, some glue and some markers, and yeah.
Yep.
Tell me.
So when I was thinking about, because I know that, again, everybody watching isn't going to consider themselves an artist, but, so these were all commandeered by my kids. I was also thinking of, if you were to consider doing an art journal, you could possibly, maybe you already have a journal in place. But if you don't have a journal, because, we're all supposed to be staying home right now, you could also just, you could find blank pieces of paper. You could even tape these papers together, or you could stitch them together after you make a series of these. So don't let having the right materials, kind of get in your way of feeling like you either can or can't do this. I think you can do this regardless of what kind of materials you have. If you have oil pastels or watercolors, by all means use them. But if you have, just regular Crayola markers, that works too, or even a pencil or just a pen. The whole idea is like, let's make it simple. So for example, this was the art journal, page that I made today.
Oh, look at
Yeah.
that. Thank you for the microphone. I love that.
Well, yeah. So as I was thinking about our meeting, Cathy, I actually thought, okay, I'm going to give myself this 15 minutes to work on this. So this was created in 15 minutes.
Allie,
Yeah. And it
gosh.
was really created just kind of going. Now, again, I do have, kids at home, and I do have some art materials that others might not have. But, I was really just kind of thinking about, if I was to do a practice grounded in gratitude and mindfulness, maybe I just spend the first few minutes in my journal writing about just three things that I am grateful for. And so my first thought was, I am grateful that we can create connections during time of chaos. And I was thinking about you and I and how we are getting to creatively connect right now. So that was one of the things that I was really looking forward to and feeling grateful for today. I was also, when I think about gratitude, gratitude can be really big scale or it can be really kind of small scale things. So I was thinking about how joyful it was to hear my kids laughing today. Sometimes they can be fighting. So when I hear laughter and giggling, that's really a good thing. Um, and then, I was also, I saw this turquoise color. My husband's working on a kitchen remodel or a bathroom remodel, and we just picked out a turquoise paint. And so when I saw this turquoise, it just made me feel grateful that we have turquoise in the world. So gratitude can really be both big and small things. Gratitude could be, I'm so grateful for having a home, but gratitude could also just be, I'm really grateful that I'm hearing the birds outside right now. So that
Oh.
could be a way of starting a gratitude journal, is just by writing down 3 things.
Do you, Allie, when you're doing your journal, is it an everyday kind of a thing? Because that seems to me, I love the idea so much, but it makes me tired thinking it would be an everyday thing.
It could be, or it doesn't have to be. Sometimes when if we find something that brings us joy or meaning, building it into a practice could be really beneficial. Just like yoga or meditation or going out and jogging, right? The more we practice it, the more we are able to kind of get into a process that can help us to be a little bit more grounded and mindful. And during times of stress and chaos, that could actually be really important to have something that you do at least regularly or consistently.
I
But
think this time, of course, in our lives would be perfect to do something like this. We're all cooped up. We're not exactly sure what the heck's going on. It sounds like something that it would be time well spent.
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it could be 10 to 15 minutes, right? So if you think of, I can mindlessly spend 10 to 15 minutes on Facebook, whereas I could probably get a little bit more intentionality and meaning out of sitting down and just doing something that's really helping me to reflect on my day. Um, and again, and just the moment. So that kind of concept of mindfulness too, I think is a really important part of the creativity and art making process.
I'm going to switch it around for just a second here, Allie, and ask you about our focus on using art to start tough conversations, using art as like a doorway or a lens. Why do you think that seems to work? Why is that? Do you have any ideas as an art therapist as to why that is such a fruitful way to begin?
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, first, maybe we can talk just a little bit about art therapy. And I kind of made some cheat sheets.
Nice.
So, art therapy, there's kind of 2 premises behind art therapy. So, there's art as therapy, and then this concept of art psychotherapy. And when you're doing art therapy, it's really about the relationship between the client or the patient, the art therapist, and then the art product and the art process. Um, and so when we talk about art therapy, art as therapy, again, we're all kind of innately creative. And there's a sense that art is innately therapeutic, regardless of if you're doing it in the context of a therapeutic relationship or not. Just by creating and being present in a process can allow us a sense of self-reflection. It can allow us some insight into ourselves. Now, this concept of art psychotherapy, that's really, again, if you think of any type of therapeutic relationship, if you were to work with an art therapist behind closed doors in a one-to-one or family session, you're really working with a therapist who not only knows about art and art history and art process, but also deeply rooted in the fundamentals of psychology and counseling. And the idea of art as psychotherapy is you're really working um, to have some self insight and to have goals and to have some sense of growth. Um, so again, just this concept of just being creative and just doing art, it can actually be incredibly grounding and give individuals insight, especially during times where the world feels really busy and out of control and a lot of chaos. It's actually a very grounding process where you're really working tangibly with your hands, with materials. You can't help but be in that moment, in the process.
Does this still work though, Ali, if you were to view art? And I say this because, oh, I'm losing track of the days. I really am. I think it was last week. I did something online about how I try to seek beauty every day in some form. And that's my little valve that I release stress with, right? It could be, I have a Tibetan singing bowl that I love the sound. I think it's beautiful. And I have some other little things that I use that bring me joy when I see them because they're beautiful in my mind. They're beautiful. So my question here is, can some of the benefits of art therapy still be seen even if you were to view different forms of art?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, connecting with the things around us, the experiences, the senses, the things that give us joy, absolutely, there can be benefit. At Gildas Club, we run a group that was actually developed at Memorial Sloan Kettering called Meaning Centered Psychotherapy, and it's really based on the work of Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and he was a psychologist who lived through the concentration camps. And it's about part of this group is really learning to connect with meaningful moments through the things that we experience and sense. So just like what you were talking about, if going and looking at images at the art museum or even in an art book bring you pleasure, or, in this time of virtual living, I was doing something recently where I had to come up and look at a YouTube video of just beautiful images that have been created throughout the centuries. Those can all be really meaningful ways to tap into just connecting with creativity and the sense of beauty and, and those things that bring us joy. So absolutely.
Love that. You were kind. I loved your visuals, by the way. Thank you for thank you for creating those. So I'm gonna probably need to wrap this up because like everyone's we're running out of bandwidth.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yep.
Um, I've never said that before in any interview ever. So bottom line here is this is a great practice, and it sounds like
Yeah.
it's simple to do right now
Yep.
as people are watching.
Mhm.
Um, how are you going to be using your background as an art therapist to nourish you as you move through this really uncertain time?
Yeah, well, again, I think connecting with mindfulness, grounding, oftentimes I will start my day off with just doing 3 really deep grounding breaths. And then that can be followed by, again, writing 1 to 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then the beauty of adding some visuals to it is it really helps you to then really connect with what it is that you're intentionally finding gratitude in. So for me, again, it's about a practice, and it's not about making something that's pretty. It's really just about kind of creating some synapses and connections in my brain, so that as I move through the day, if it gets challenging, if it gets difficult, now I will go back to this and I'll think, gosh, Cathy and I had such a wonderful conversation, and look, we're getting to share it with people who might not always hear this, or gosh, I really enjoyed when my kids are fighting. I will go back to that moment and think, well, but they did giggle this morning and they were laughing. So it's not all bad, right? And that's the process of gratitude and mindfulness, is that it does help us, connect to those moments. And by doing a little intentional art making around it, it helps to just reaffirm those connections in different ways.
Now, Gilda's Club, you've got so many great programs. Is
Mhm.
it only open to folks who are living with cancer and caregivers, or can others share in this?
Yeah, so our primary mission, and those we primarily serve, are individuals who are currently impacted by cancer. So that, that is the community within which we create. But, there's so many people right now who are looking for a sense of connection. And certainly some of what we're offering online will be able to be viewed, will be able to be shared. We actually just did a singing bowl meditation yesterday, that we recorded, that we'll be able to share. So we do hope that others will be able to, get a sense of this community. But it is, when you're going through cancer, you're really looking to connect with other people who get it, so to speak. And so that is primarily, that is who we serve, and that is our mission.
Give me your website.
Yeah, so it's www.gildasclubtwincities.org,
And of
all
course,
spelled out.
donations always accepted.
Donations are always accepted. Yeah, especially during really, times where there's uncertainty and a lot of fear. So we're willing to keep our doors open, even though they might be virtual right now.
I really admire the work that you do, the organization, the work that you do. And of course, I'm a huge fan of you, Ali. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks, Cathy. It was such a delight to have this time with you. Thank you for the invitation.
And stay healthy.
You too.
I will. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.